Drop-down menus, let's talk about them. So there's a variety of ways you can do this. And you can actually go searching around on the web and end up with a flash menu and different types of HTML5 menus and a variety of methods that can be used to add a drop-down menu. I'm going to show you today how to use the one that's installed in Dreamweaver, but I'm also going to point out some other ways to get some at the very beginning here in case you don't like the one in Dreamweaver. But I think the one in Dreamweaver is the most user-friendly because it's so easy to build. Okay, so that's what we're going to cover. And then we'll also talk about how when you put it in, it does install a bunch of files, and you have to make sure you pay attention to those and where they are. You're going to need to change it around a bit to fit the look of your own site, and that might involve some of the CSS being altered. And then once you get it set up on one page, you're going to have to move it to other pages. So this is one of those situations where, yes, if you haven't built your site yet, you're probably going to be happier that I'm showing this to you now, because you can set it up on the first page or on 3 pages if you have a template that has like a sub page and a different version of the sub page, and then just clone from there, and you don't have to worry about moving all the right stuff to each page. If you already have 20 pages on your site and you want the drop-down menu on every page, even if you set up a library for your links, you still have to move it to every page by cutting and pasting. Okay, it's not that bad though, and that's what we'll do at the very end here. All right, so before we jump into the Dreamweaver menu, and we'll do that on our demo site, there are sites like this one, and again, with a lot of these sites, these guys say, yeah, here, download Vista buttons. You can use the program to actually build your own CSS drop-down menus and make them look however you want with special backgrounds and stuff. You can do the same thing in Dreamweaver. This just might make it a bit simpler, but you only get so many options with the free version, right? They say it's all free, but then you get in there and they show you all this awesome stuff, and you have to pay to get the awesome stuff. And this is just one example of the many places out there where you can get this kind of thing. If you were to Google, for example, not even CSS, if you were to just go HTML drop-down menu, okay, or drop-down menu code, right? Vista actually is one of the first things that comes up. That's good optimization right there, as you can see. You can do this in PHP. You can do this in a variety of ways. What's this one at? Yeah, this might be another buy our stuff. Oh no, they give you a code here, so they give you some basics, and then you could try and format it yourself. But when you have one in Dreamweaver that actually works pretty well, why go Googling it like crazy until you find one that works instead of just putting it in from Dreamweaver, right? So that's what I'm going to show you here. I still have a lot of respect for some of the online WYSIWYG platforms we can do this, like particularly WordPress, and I kind of like Joomla. For a lot of reasons, I still feel like Dreamweaver is the best place for optimizing, so that's why I teach you to use the drop-down menu in there. Alternative drop-down menu codes might give you something like this. So this is one of the sites I built. It's a very simple site. I've taken you there a bunch of times. I don't have any drop-down on the main menu here, and I didn't want a full-on drop-down menu across the board. So I got a really simple code and just used it to create this one simple drop-down menu just for gear, okay? Now, in other browsers, it actually pops up underneath gear. It doesn't cover it up like that. I don't really care that it covers it up. It's not perfect. A lot of these things based on Java and HTML5 don't always work the same exact way in browsers. That's why you want to test in multiple browsers when you do something like this. As soon as you get past basic CSS and HTML, start testing in browsers. I was happy with the way this worked on a Mac and PC, so that's fine. That's a basic single item drop-down menu. I did do that by Googling a quick code. I put it in, it worked. I pasted it across the board in the other menus where I wanted that page, or where I wanted that drop-down, and it was done. Let's say I'm involved in another situation where I want to put a drop-down menu into my entire site and I want the same menu on every page. I would do that using the Dreamweaver Spry drop-down menu. So that's how we're going to do that here, okay? So I'm just opening up Dreamweaver. Okay, so here I am in my demo site, and I'm going to start and put this in on index. It's just the obvious choice to go with. As you can see here, I got my cute little active link that we set up in the last video. I want a different menu. I mean, I know I've already built this menu and then I've cloned the page and moved all the pages to the pages folder. So where this link right now in this menu goes into the pages folder, if I were to open up another one, it doesn't have the pages path. All of these have automatically been fixed for me when I move the files. Don't worry, I'll show you a way around all the busy work of fixing links as we create this menu. So number one step in getting a Dreamweaver Spry menu installed is finding the place to put it, or at least that's what I think the number one step is. Other instructors might show you different, but placement of it is important. Okay, and somebody already mentioned in my class, hey, I keep trying to put it in the line item and it's not working. You can't install an entire menu inside of a line item. Then you have line items and line items in your code, right? This menu is going to automatically install with 4 main items and a couple drop downs, and you just alter it from there and set it up the way you want it. So go in your code, so click a design view on one of your menu items and then go into your code and take a look at what's going on there. So if you've done my web workshop, you know that you're going to be inside a div ID, which is set up to be 600 pixels wide and this and that. Inside of that div ID, you start a list, and then inside of that list, you start a bunch of line items. I don't necessarily know that it's going to benefit you one way or the other to put it inside the div ID, but you definitely can't put this inside the other list and the other line items. However, you might still want those there just to refer to the links. So what I would do is just find a place in your site that's not inside a div that might start to overlay or alter the formatting of what you're going to put in from Dreamweaver, because it's going to come with its own formatting. So I'm just going to go not in any div at all, except div, well, I'm still in body. But what I'm going to do is inside of the body, I'm going to go after the logo div closes. And so I'm still in the header div, but the header div, if you look on my CSS really quickly, if I click over here to the CSS, the header div, all it is sizing. It doesn't actually apply any formatting or anything. It does have a bit of padding in general on the entire div, but it doesn't edit any lists or line items. So, in the header div, I think I'm safe to put my menu. But you'll notice that in code, sorry, go back to source code, I'm only in the header div, even though I'm right there, because the logo div is closed and the menu div hasn't started. Your HTML might look a little different if you're putting this on your own site and not doing it on the demo site with me. But the bottom line is you want to be outside of any divs, but ideally in that top area div, which is usually called header or top. I mean, most people that are coding CSS, if you got a template, will have named it something like that. So inside of there, I'm going to go and insert a Dreamweaver Spry menu. There's a few places you can do this from. You can get into it from these buttons actually. Under Layout, Spry menu, I think is right here. Okay, and that's why I like the Classic tab. But how often are you really going to insert a menu, right? It's not going to happen that often. So some of you, if you're not using Classic, you might have to go into the Insert menu. And then under the Insert menu, I think it's under Layout, and it's under Spry. So it's, as usual in Dreamweaver, these things are in multiple places. I'm just going to pull it up from right here. I'm going to go across. I'm going horizontal, okay? Okay, so we know our menu is going across in this page, so I'm going to go horizontal, and it puts this menu in. Now I want to draw your attention to a couple different things. Automatically, it highlighted the menu that it put in. So you see it starts menu bar horizontal, it ends here. Also, up in the head, before the body started, it put a few lines of script, okay, or a couple. My monitor's a little tight here, so it's a couple lines. It put some script in there. And above that, it put a link to a file. Now, I haven't saved this file since I put the menu in, so right now it has that stupid file path link that I've talked about before. Once you save the file, that will fix itself. It also put in some code down at the bottom, in the body, before the body closes, that actually runs the Java that has the menu bar working, okay? So as soon as you put one in and go to design view and you see that it's in there, and it's just on top of the other one, we'll sort that out in a second. First thing you should do is just save the file. So just Control S. As soon as you save the file, it's going to automatically ask you, oh, hey, there's a big pile of files that you need to save now that are associated with some of the stuff you just put into this page. It talks about object behavior or something like that. This page uses an object or behavior that requires supporting files. You need these files in your site. If you just click OK, it automatically puts all the files into your site. So if we collapse our folders here, you're going to see now, if we refresh, don't forget to refresh. It's there. You just got to refresh. There's a folder now called Spry Assets. Now, I know it has some capital letters in it, and I tell you not, if you want to fix that right now, you can, and update links, and it will, but I'm not going to go grading your sites and pick you apart because you had capital letters in a folder that Dreamweaver named for you. I mean, if you put it in directly from Dreamweaver, you're never going to have problems with links anyway. The main reason I advise you guys to do that from the ground up is so that you as a best practice, always know there's not going to be capital letters. Just for the sake of being complete here, I am going to close my files because I don't like updating links unless all my files are closed. And I am going to just rename this folder. I'm just going to call it Spry with all small letters, okay? And I'm going to update any links that are linked to that folder. And I'm also going to find in this folder the file that adjusts or that controls the CSS just for the menu. Because we have a CSS file for our page. Now that you've installed a Spry menu, and you're going to see this happen a lot when you start to add different technology to your sites, you have an additional CSS file just for that menu. You're welcome to go and take all that CSS and cut it and just dump it into your main CSS file, but I think it's simpler to keep them separated because of the way this menu functions. So, and I said before, I like you to have one CSS file for your main formatting and the main frame of your page, like the way it looks, the main, not frames, I don't like frames, but the main look of your page. This file is just for the menu, so you're allowed to have a second file. So take that file and put it into your CSS folder, update links again. So this is just, you don't have to do this, guys. I won't mark you down if you haven't done this. This is just a thing that I like to do as a best practice. And then, to simplify the name, call it Spry menu.css. So then you know, you got your main style sheet, you got Spry all along the way, updating links, so that when I go and open up my index page to start playing around with this menu, everything still works. It looks exactly the same. I did it with files closed, so I know there was no chance of me not saving something that I already updated. Okay? So now I got this boring looking little gray menu there, which is fine. First thing you should do is set up the items on your menu to match the items you actually want. So this is where that pre-planning might come in handy, because now you can go and look at your site hierarchy and you can figure out where you wanted the drop-down menu, where you didn't. Just clicking on the menu isn't really going to bring up the slew of options you have to edit this in the properties pane. You kind of have to keep going to code and sorting through the items and changing them there. I think it's much easier in Dreamweaver to edit this in properties. All you have to do is click on the little blue bar every time you want to get the Spry menu items to come up. Okay, when you click on the blue bar, you have all this stuff. If you move the menu to another page and you can't click on the blue bar, it's because you haven't moved all the code yet. We'll deal with that right at the end there. It's just a few minutes away. So first things first, I don't want 4 menu items, I want 6. So this is done, and this is a Spry menu that allows up to 3 levels. So you have your top level, you can have drop downs to any of the items in the top level, and you can have drop downs to those menus at one more level. So you can have sub menu items and then sub menu items, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to try a little bit of that here just by making, this is just an example. So first things first, I don't want 4 items. I have 6 in my main menu right now. I'm going to add 1 and then another one, okay? Now I'm going to go through each of the items here one by one and name them according to what they should be named in this menu that I already have. So item number 1 should not be item number 1, it should be home. This second item, which is untitled item right now, should be about. See what I'm doing? And I'm doing this not in the code because I think it's way easier to use this properties pane. And the way I got to this was simply by clicking the little blue bar. Okay, untitled is the third, so that would be locations. Fourth is gear. Click on it, make sure you're on it. Gear, okay. It's super simple the way they have this set up for you. Contact, okay, and other ones that you download might not be this simple. And then hit enter. So now if I go scroll up and down in here, I have them all set up. Let's say I added them in the wrong order or something. Let's say I want to move locations up or down. Sit on any of the items. You can move them up and down in the menu without having to go into the code and cut and paste the whole line item. This is quite cool the way this is set up. Okay, so you can move those up and down. And now I can go through and decide which items in my main menu I want to have drop downs for. I don't want drop downs on my home button. I just don't. I don't need them. So click on the home button, go to the drop-down items that it gave you there by default. By default, it gives you a 4-item menu with drop-downs on a couple items. I don't want any drop-downs here, okay? So I'm just going to go minus, 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 and it deletes them, okay? I'm not going to go into the code and be screwing around in there. This is way faster. I go to About. I don't need any drop-downs there. I go to Locations. I do want some drop-downs on Locations. I'm doing Southwestern Ontario fishing here, so I'm going to add to my drop-downs Huron. So Lake Huron. I'm going to add another one. Lake Erie. I'm going to add another one, Lake Ontario. I'm not going to put in Lake Michigan or Lake Superior because this is Southwestern Ontario, but I am going to put in Lake St. Clair. There's some pretty sweet fishing there. I know that's not a Great Lake. Okay, I know my Great Lakes well. I'm just listing the 4 main bodies of water for which you'd fish. And then I might have another drop down that lists smaller water. And on that drop down, I'm actually going to have submenu items to that. So you can see each of these are just submenu items to locations. To smaller water, I'm going to have an additional drop down that talks about rivers and inland lakes. Okay? So that one had a submenu. Then I get to gear. I'm not sure I'm ready to make a drop down for that yet. I could maybe a bit later, but for right now I'm going to leave it. Then I get to contact, and I don't want to drop down on contact, so I'm going to get rid of these. And some of these even had some menu items. So you'll see when you go and try and delete an item that has some menu items, it gives you a warning message that says you're going to delete this menu item with all of its children. They call submenu items children, which actually makes more sense than what I'm saying sub-menu items. So yeah, that's fine. And then I'm going to delete the other 2. And then on maps, I'm going to probably do the same drop downs. But I'm going to just do the 4 lakes for locations, and then those will each have little icons to the different maps to get to each location. So I'm going to do again Lake Huron, okay, Lake Ontario. I think this is maybe out of order. We'll go check that in a second. Lake Erie and Lake St. Clair. And I don't need the smaller bodies because I'll get to those later. Ideally, though, you do want to try and put in all the links you want from the get-go before you go and move this menu to all your other pages if you do already have subpages. Because even if you use a function like, if you go to assets, for example, you can create what's called a Dreamweaver library. This is something I haven't gotten into with you guys yet. It does make it a little easier in general to manage your main hyperlinks because you can just change them in the library and they'll change across all the pages. However, you can use change link site-wide in this menu, and it's almost as powerful. Okay, I just think the library function, like the template function, still adds a bit of code into your pages that isn't great for optimizations. Regardless, I will be doing a video on that one. I don't love it, and the benefits of the library function aren't that great because even with a drop-down menu, if you want to set up multiple menu items, you're still going to have to go back to each page and add each of these items unless you create like an editable region in Dreamweaver, which is that whole situation where it's getting into code that simply just it bungs up your site. There's just too much code, okay? But I'll still show you that. Ideally, the way I'm teaching it, to simplify your code as much as you can, I want you to try and set up this main menu with all the drop downs you think you're going to want from the get-go. And if you've pre-planned your site, it shouldn't be that hard to do. That way you don't have to, like if you add one single menu item, you don't have to go back and add it, okay? Now, the little icon kind of collection I'm going to have, I do kind of want to try and set up in your main menu, but we're going to pretend we forgot to do that. So when I go to do the big 4 icons in the next class, I'll show you how to troubleshoot that if you've already set up your menu. For right now, we're done. We set up our menu, we got all our items in there. What's our next step? Go back to each item and add the links. So I've clicked off the menu items, which means I can only edit the links for the main menu items down here like you do usually in the properties panel. Click back on the blue bar. It's easier to do it in here. Okay? No, you don't have the drop down here, but it's just as easy without the drop down to go to browse. Okay, and this is going to link back to the home page, so you just link it to index, and then you go to the next one. And the benefit of doing it this way as opposed to these is when you put in the link to one of these pages, you can accidentally scroll with your mouse and shift the page before you get to the next one. You can't do that when you're adding the links up here in the Spry menu. So do each of them like that. So click on About, go and pick it up. So if you have the pages made already, if you didn't have the pages made, you just type the link in just like you were setting them all up in the cloning process we did with the basic standard menu. It's the same exact way. Now I actually do have About made, so I'm going to put it in there. Then I'm going to go to Locations. I do have Locations made, so I'm going to put it in there and click OK. Click on the next one, go to Gear. So I'm in my Pages folder, yes, but it's adding the Pages path in front of it just like I wanted to. Okay, Contact. I go to Contact. All right, and then down here to Maps, and I click on Maps. And you need to be careful because I've taught you guys when you're setting up a menu and you get all these links put in, and then you clone the pages, to go and check your links to see if you've messed any links up. Because if you have typos where the page file doesn't match the link file or vice versa, it'll pull those up. If you have pages inside of a menu that still hold a dead link, so a number sign is a dead link to show you what the formatting for A is going to look like in that menu, you're not going to be able to to see those and check links site-wide. Those are still considered working links. They just go nowhere. So be aware of that. If you don't fix dead links, just because you go to check links site-wide and it doesn't find any broken links doesn't mean that all your links are there. You still got to put in your dead links too. So I know that eventually I'm going to make the pages for these sites, and maybe I don't need all those keywords in them this time. I'm just trying to do this quickly. So I'm going to call this one Huron.html, and that's what I'll call it. And then I'm going to go to the next one and call it Ontario.html, and then Erie.html. So eventually I would make all these pages by cloning from another page in the Pages folder. Okay, and then stclaire.html. And then where did I have that sub menu? I think it was About Locations. So the location page for Lake Huron will actually be not just Huron, but Lake Huron.html, because this will be a different page. Okay, this will be smaller water.html. And then I can quickly, while I'm on that one, get the children. So I'm going to call this one rivers.html. I should be calling them Mike's Fishing Rivers and Mike's Inland Lakes. I'm just not doing it right now just to save some time, okay? I'm not putting the keywords in. HTML, so then I'd go through and do the rest quickly here. I'm just going to pause. Okay, there. So I finished the rest of the links while I was on pause. So now every single link in the whole menu is built. I'm coming along pretty good. I'm going to save my changes. Can I move my menu yet? Yeah, maybe. Let's get it looking the right way too now. So this is step number 3. So step number 1, getting it in the right place and saving the file. As soon as you do that, it's in the right place. It moves all the files into your site. I moved a few files around to be, in the kind of place where I like them to be. Then step number 2 is setting up your menu. Change all the default items to what you actually want in your menu. Add and subtract where you see fit with children, and then children of those children for sub-menu items. Now we want to make it look like the way our other menu looked. You know what? I like the way this looks. I like the background. I think that's fine. I don't want to get rid of that. I actually want my menu to look pretty much the same way. Don't spend 2 hours doing this, especially if you already have the CSS built. Okay, only place you're going to go to change the way this looks is in the CSS file that's adjusting how this looks, which is sprymenu.css. Open it up and take a good look at it. If you look at these little gray shaded areas, not shaded, but the gray text, in the web workshop we learned about comments. We learned that you can also have comments not just in HTML but in CSS. These are comments in your CSS, and these are there to show you what this CSS is doing. So if I go down a little farther, this is doing the line item, this is doing the UL, blah, 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 blah. If you go here, you'll quickly see that you have an A. And the A is making it look a certain way. And it's got this background color, which is 333. Double click it, open it up. That's kind of like a dark gray thing. Okay, cool. So this is a white background color. And so different formats are coming up in different places here. Right before them, it says, menu items are a light gray block with padding and no text decoration. Menu items that have a mouse over or focus have a blue background and white text. Now, I'm not going to want that blue background. We'll get to that. Okay, so they actually tell you in the comments what each of these CSS rules are doing. So by looking at the CSS, before you just start, look at what's in this file. I mean, there's a lot of junk, right? Before you start going through here and just trying to edit every single thing until you finally see the thing change that you want to change, why not go through and take a look at what some of these codes actually are? So let's go to that first A, because we want everything that's linked to look more like our menu. Menu bar horizontal A. So why not just do this? This is how their menu looks right now. Why don't I go into, and here, that's another thing you should take note of. Remember how I said that anything, including the source code that you can edit associated with this sheet, will start to pop up in this little top bar here? If I go to the style sheet, I'm going to be able to pull up the A from our current menu. Okay, so let's go down to menu and let's go to A. Okay, and let's take, we know all these files are in the site, right? We know they're all there, they're working. Let's take and copy that whole code and go to sprymenu.css and replace it with the code we already had. I'm not talking about all kinds of crazy CSS here. I know the code was working, so why not try that? Okay, I'm coming along here now. This is good. Clearly, there's some other CSS rules that some of these menu items are picking up. Okay, let's go to live view. Like this one, okay, that probably has a sub menu. And for some reason, because it has a sub menu, it has its own CSS. So it, and this one too, anything with sub menus, they're not picking up the background. So there's probably another place in the Spry menu CSS, another A, where I can paste that same code. Okay, so let's read what these things are very quickly. Okay, so menu items that have a mouse over or focus have a blue background. No, it's probably not that one. Menu items that open with submenus. Okay, this is probably going to cover it for me. Let's just stick it in there and see what happens. No, it still didn't cover it. So pretty much anywhere we see an A, we're just going to keep putting it in there. Even if I save the changes? No, still not there. So maybe I have to turn it off live view and go back. No, it's still red. So I'm still not getting it. So is there another A? Hover, UL hover. Okay. So it's probably easier if I go right to the code and go through it that way. So let me just find it quickly. Okay, so just by reading the comments, I had figured out that it was probably this one that also needed it. So there was a few spots I put it, and then by the time I put it in there, I have all of these looking that way. Now there's still a couple issues. I don't like the way when I hover for a second I lose the background, so I can fix that too. But now that I'm pretty happy with the way my menu looks, I can go to code view and get rid of my other menus. So get off design, or not, you know what, you don't even really need to do it that way. Go to the other menu, get on div menu, and then in code, if you go to source code, of course, because you're on the HTML, here, div menu, code. You can see it's highlighted that menu, just get it out of there. You don't need it. You got the other one working in its own menu, you really don't need it. Okay, and now that falls into the same area as the other one. Couple other issues, right? I want this area to fit into 600 pixels across. It's not doing that. It's putting this bottom thing, it's putting the last link down onto the bottom. I need it to fit, okay? So somewhere in here, you know, it's not fitting, and it's probably because more than anything that I have this padding in between these cells. So the padding is unnecessary, and it's causing this to bump onto another line. So in the Spry menu CSS, I have to further try and fix this. So if I were to go through here and look for padding or margins, none there, none there, width 8, padding 0, they're in here somewhere. Okay, just by getting rid of it, there's some margins. What happens if I get rid of those? No, not yet. Okay, get in there. Oh, geez, hang on a second. I just oh no, I'm back to normal. Okay, good. So there's a few more things I need to do. I need to get this the right size. So let's get that sorted out. Okay, so it's not actually padding, and I figured this out by using the tag inspector. So as I clicked over, I can see that it's not in the A, it's in the line item itself. So the line item, unlike my previous menu, actually has a heavier width, and I know my previous menu had a width of 100 pixels. So if I change this to 100 px, it's probably going to fix those menu items and put them back the way they should be. Okay. Now, what I did do in here was somewhere along the way. There, I took out that, and I didn't really want to lose that. So all I really want to do is get rid of that stupid 8M and change it to 100 pixels so it matches the other menu. So now I'm really getting somewhere. I've got all the items on one page, on one line. I've got them all set up in here, okay, to be on one line. And now what I want to do is set up my active class and also set up a method to move this from one page to another. So let's get everything sorted out. Well, you could move it now, actually. Let's move it now, and then we can do the active stuff later. So I'm going to show you how to move it, because anything you now edit in the CSS will edit on every page. There's still some blue background stuff that I need to get rid of. There's still a couple things in the CSS that I need to clean up. I may not see now there, and this item with submenus doesn't have the background. I probably want to go fix that, or maybe I want to change the background for my submenus. For the sake of this video not being too long, I'm just going to stop there, and I'm going to start moving the menu, but I will do the active class as well. Let's move the menu first. So save everything, close this up. It's going to prompt you to save changes to your style sheets. That's good. Open index back up. And this is one of the spots that's going to screw you guys up the most if you don't watch what I'm going to move, okay? Before I move it, the first thing you should do, because you set up this menu relative to all of the pages outside of the pages folder. First thing you should do is save a version of this, clone this as, call it Spry sample page or drop down sample page, so you know that you have the menu working on there. It's working in the main folder right now. All the items are working. If I were going to cite and check links site-wide, I mean, it's going to come up with all the broken ones for the pages I haven't made yet, but the rest of them are working, okay? So I'm now, and you can see there's some broken links in my CSS to stuff that I'm not using anymore, which is fine. It's not a big deal. I'm not using that stuff anyway. I'm using my own background. So what I'm going to do here with this sample page is I'm going to close these pages up because I know everything's working on that page, and I'm going to take the sample page and drag it into pages and update the links. Why did I just do that? I'll show you, okay? By creating one simple clone from my page outside of pages. And this is only necessary if you have all your pages created and they're already in pages. If you don't, you can just set up your menu and start cloning from there and move your pages around after that however you see fit and update links. The reason I moved this in here is because I needed this menu bar to be set up at another version where it bounces out to get to the home page, because that's where it's going, and locations didn't have the pages path in front of them. Do you get me here? Once you do that, you can then move this to the other pages if you already have them in pages. And if you're not going to do it by cloning, there are 3 things you have to move. I'll show you each of the 3. Number 1 thing is the menu itself. So get into the menu somewhere, click over in the tag inspector until you're highlighting the menu, go to code view. This is the whole menu. Copy that or cut it, go to the place in the other pages where your menu is, get rid of that menu, and put this menu in its place. That's step number 1. Then on those pages where you've copied the menu into, if you don't copy these other 2 chunks of code, the menu will not work right, okay? Number 1 piece of code, okay? Not the link to your regular style sheet. That was already there, that's fine. There's 2 lines of new code that were added. One that links to the CSS Spry file, and one that links to the Spry menu bar, the Java file, okay? These need to be moved, copied, and put into the head of the other page where you put the menu. Additionally, you need to go down here and move from the start of the script tag to the end of the script tag, right below your body closes, this chunk of code. If you don't move those other 2 pieces of code, you're going to have a menu bar inside of your page, and Dreamweaver is going to keep telling you, hey, you got a bunch of Java in here that's not connected to anything. Should I just delete it all? Should I delete any instance of this code? And you don't want to do that, right? So you don't just move the menu when you have something connected to Java. You got to move the whole menu, and then you got to move the script at the bottom and the links in your head up here, these 2 lines. So without moving those two, it's not going to work, okay? And now finally, at the very end, once you get all this set up, let's say you totally forgot about your active class. Okay, you just completely forgot about it. The easiest way to start to edit these things once you get into the code and it's compounded this much is actually just to add additional, and this is the way you could fix some of the items in the menu, like where this one doesn't have a background and stuff. You're going to go into the menu bar, okay, and sitting on this one, for example, well, the active class you can actually just move over from the other CSS. I'm just saying, if you need to edit the way this looks individually, or edit, for example, the way here, why aren't those menu items coming up? Okay, so see how that one doesn't have a background? See how I got to it? I went to the menu bar, I got to that item. See how it doesn't have a background? Instead of continuing to go through the CSS like I was doing, which can be a bit tedious, it's kind of hard to file through all the stuff that's in there, go here and just add a CSS rule based on your selection, compound, and put it into that same style sheet, the Spry menu sheet. Go here and give it that background, because for some reason it's not picking it up. So I go into images, I give it the same background, I go okay, I click apply. Now it's good. See, I just fixed it without having to spend all that time trying to go. So you want to do it the other way for the first bit of CSS, but once you continue to go through, it's kind of hard to continue to find the spots where the code should be. Then finally you have the active class that we learned in the last thing, and it is set up in our original style sheet. We have active, where is it? Menu A active. So we have a class set up here to look just like this. So copy this code. Okay, in fact, you can copy the whole code. You're just going to have to change the stuff in front of it. Okay, copy this code and go to your Spry menu and go down and figure out what's adjusting this. So this is menu bar dot menu bar horizontal. So this whole thing is kind of based on classes. So you have to go and find menu bar horizontal, okay, which is, well, you know what? I'll just, if you guys actually are going to take it this far, I'll let you go. I'll put this in the end of my video. Don't worry. It's going to be in there, okay? How to change this active class. So you guys can go. It's fine. But I'm going to have to, this will take me a second to find it, and it's 11:55. Okay, so the easiest way to do this would be to find the item on your main menu.
Going on.
Oh, you do? Okay, I'm going to have to, all right, that's cool. That's totally cool. Hang on one second. Okay, so all you really have to do here is find the main menu item. So I just went through and read the comments. I wasn't recording when I was doing that. I had to pause, but I went through and read the comments, and this is the main top menu item. And then what you can do there is simply add, oops, let's go back and copy that again. Let's copy our active code, okay, that we were already using. Go there and apply it to there, and then you just simply need to change the code that precedes it. Okay, so this is menu A active. This is, okay, so we can't leave menu there anymore because this is no longer associated with a div called menu, but if we take whatever is above it, preceding it, and put that in there, that should apply then to that area. So this is actually a class in itself. You can see it's a class for this list, but that's fine. You just take what you have there and put it right before the active class, and then this becomes a class subject to this menu bar. You don't need the A because it's already there at the end, so it's already associating it with A. So now that we have that in there, we can save changes to our CSS. Let's go to our source code and design view. This is indexed, so this is where we want the active class to show up just like it was before. So we'd go to code view and we'd simply go in here and add class equals active. I'm just doing it in code view because it's a bit quicker than having that. Maybe not. Class equals active. Okay, and voila. So what you have here is a full Spry menu bar that I've set up with all the submenu items, showed you how to move everything with all the pieces of code you need to move, showed you the best way to move one into pages if you need to clone one there, and we got to put our active class on that we made in the last video. So everything should have been covered now. Getting it installed, all the files that come with it, I moved them around a bit just to show you if you wanted to do that, how you do that. altering it to fit your site, changing the CSS, and then moving the entire menu to other pages. And then just to kind of throw it on the end there, we did the active class as well. Okay, so I will see you guys in the next video.